Humans shock aliens. When the galaxy first met humanity, the official reports were confused. Not alarmed, not hostile, confused. Because humans did not fit. They were not the strongest species in known space, not the smartest, not the fastest, not the most advanced. And yet, within a few months of first contact, humanity had managed to shock nearly every major civilization in the stars. Not by conquering anyone, not by inventing impossible technology, but by behaving in ways that seemed, to alien minds, completely irrational. Humans ran toward danger, laughed in tense situations, ate things classified as chemical irritants, touched broken machines with bare hands, and most disturbingly of all, they treated strangers like responsibility. That last part confused the galaxy most, because the stars were full of civilized peoples, honorable peoples, intelligent peoples. But most of them had learned caution so well that caution had become instinct. Humans had learned something else, that sometimes the thing most likely to save a life was acting before the fear finished speaking. And the first species to learn that lesson the hard way were the Talaran. It began with a merchant vessel drifting near the outer Sol shipping lanes. Power failure, heat loss, navigation collapse. Nothing dramatic at first, just the quiet beginning of death in space. 3 nearby alien ships received the distress call. All 3 slowed. All 3 began proper emergency calculations. Radiation exposure, debris drift, legal access windows, risk of secondary failure. They did exactly what trained captains were supposed to do. Then a human tugboat arrived. It was ugly, industrial, scarred, and had the words, "It'll do," painted across the hull. The human captain didn't ask who had jurisdiction. She didn't wait for rescue clearance. She took one look at the failing Talaran ship and said, "Hang on, we're coming." The alien ships warned her approach was unsafe. She answered, "Yeah, that's why they need help." And then the human tug slammed through debris, locked emergency cables onto the drifting vessel, burned through dangerous radiation, and dragged the merchant ship clear before its life support failed completely. 3 humans were injured. 1 suffered burns. Another fractured an arm. When the rescued Talaran asked why the humans had risked themselves for strangers, the human captain looked genuinely puzzled. "Because you were in trouble." That answer spread through the Talaran worlds like a philosophical disease, because among most civilized species, risk had to be justified by duty, law, rank, or contract. Humans apparently thought suffering nearby was enough. That was the first shock. The second came from lunch. On Port Meridian, a human engineer invited several alien technicians to share what he called real food. This should have been treated as a threat. Instead, the guests arrived politely. They found a boiling metal pot full of red vapor and a human smiling, with the confidence of a man about to commit cultural violence. The dish was called chili. One alien lost the ability to speak for several minutes. Another triggered a medical alert. A third, eyes streaming, demanded to know why humans would voluntarily consume pain. The human answered, "It's not pain, it's flavor." This explanation helped no one. Soon the galaxy learned the truth about humans and food. Humans drank bitter stimulants for pleasure, consumed burning spices for fun, fermented substances on purpose, and described dangerous chemical sensations with phrases like "extra kick" and "that's the good stuff." Alien dietary boards were horrified. If humans willingly put things like that inside themselves, what exactly frightened them? No one liked the answer. because humans seem to draw the line in wildly unpredictable places. They would eat volcanic stew without blinking, but panic if someone took their favorite coffee mug. The third shock came in a gym. Now, civilized galactic species did understand fitness. They valued health, balance, flexibility, and neural efficiency. What they did not understand was why humans would intentionally pick up heavy objects and put them back down repeatedly for recreation. At the Joran Athletic Exchange, the human delegation asked if there was anywhere to lift. That phrase would later become infamous. Inside a freight conditioning bay, a human woman stepped up to a cargo mass block, tightened her gloves, and lifted a weight that caused 2 alien observers to check the equipment for malfunction. Then she put it down and said, "I think I can do more." One scholar had to sit down immediately. Another whispered with genuine fear, "They train against gravity for enjoyment." Earth, by galactic standards, was a deeply rude planet. Heavy gravity, violent weather, predators, salt oceans, extreme temperatures. Most species had evolved on friendlier worlds. Then they met humans and realized Earth had not raised a civilization. It had forged one. But even then, aliens still misunderstood the most important thing about humans. Because human strength was impressive. Human endurance was alarming. Yet neither was the trait that truly changed galactic opinion. That came later. On Helios Break, a mining habitat suffered a seal collapse, trapping 14 workers behind a damaged emergency barrier. Automated systems predicted fatality odds above 90%. Standard procedure required withdrawal until structural specialists arrived. A Veyan overseer gave the order to stand back. Then a human technician named Malik asked the most dangerous question in engineering history. What's the manual option? There was one, unfortunately. An emergency override wheel located inside an unstable maintenance shaft with intermittent decompression bursts. No one was expected to use it because no one was expected to survive long enough. Malik went anyway. He strapped into a safety line, forced himself into the shaft, braced one boot against failing metal, and turned the wheel by hand, while the compartment screamed air past him in violent bursts. One turn, then another, then another. His gloves tore. His shoulder partly dislocated. He nearly blacked out, but the barrier opened. 14 workers lived. Later, when asked why he had ignored the probabilities, Malik gave an answer that would be quoted in engineering schools across half the galaxy. Because unacceptable isn't the same as impossible. That sentence unsettled a great many intelligent beings, because they had spent centuries learning to respect hard limits. Humans, apparently, treated limits as deeply offensive suggestions. And then came the moment that changed everything. A passenger convoy near the Dravian Fold was caught in a transit collapse. 7 ships crippled, multiple compartments failing, rescue conditions unstable. The first alien response vessels arrived, held position, and began calculating safe entry patterns, which was logical. Then the humans heard the distress call, and every nearby human ship came running. Freighters, tugs, survey craft, a medical barge. One courier vessel that absolutely should not have been there. No one had ordered them. They just came. Alien Command tried to establish structure. The humans were already moving. Pilots flew through unstable debris corridors that the official models had rejected. Engineers tore apart their own ships for spare parts. Civilian medics converted cargo bays into emergency triage wards. A human voice was heard over open comm saying, "I don't know if this is legal." Another human answered, If we live, paperwork can fight us later. That should not have been inspiring, and yet it was. Because somehow, impossibly, it worked. Not perfectly, not cleanly, but enough. Enough people were saved that survivors from 6 species later described the same thing. Human hands reaching through smoke. Human voices in the dark. Humans carrying strangers they barely understood how to medically stabilize, simply because leaving them behind felt unbearable. And at last, the galaxy understood what made humanity so shocking. It was not their food, not their strength, not their recklessness, not even their courage. It was this. Humans turned proximity into responsibility. If humans were close enough to see suffering, they felt involved, not assigned. Involved. They did not always wait to be chosen. They did not always wait to be qualified. They saw pain and thought, someone should do something. Then, to the endless confusion of every sensible civilization in the galaxy, they decided that someone might as well be them. That was what truly shocked the aliens, because the stars had expected humans to be dangerous in the usual ways. Violent, ambitious, unstable, and humans were dangerous, but mostly to indifference, dangerous to delay, dangerous to the comfortable distance that lets civilized people say, "This is unfortunate," and move on. Humans had plenty of flaws. The galaxy would go on discovering them for centuries. They were loud, contradictory, emotionally unruly, far too willing to experiment, capable of terrible ideas delivered with magnificent confidence. But they also carried something the galaxy had nearly forgotten, the instinct to close the distance, to step in, to act before certainty arrived. Years later, a training line began circulating in diplomatic academies and trade stations, preparing young aliens for their first encounter with humanity. It said, "Do not mistake human humor for shallowness. Do not mistake human recklessness for emptiness. Do not mistake human kindness for weakness. And never assume a human has accepted failure, just because failure seems reasonable." That turned out to be the best summary anyone ever produced. Because humans were shocking, yes. They shocked the galaxy with what they could survive. But in the end, that was not what mattered most. What mattered most was what they refused to walk past. And perhaps that was the strangest thing of all. In a universe of ancient wisdom, elegant systems, and carefully managed risk, the wildest species in the stars turned out to be the one most likely to say, "I know this is a bad idea. Pause, but you need help." And then do it anyway. Final line. That was what shocked the aliens.